Welcome everybody formally to our DIY Seder Workshop experience. Now this is the first time that I've done this virtually. I've done before kind of like a mock or model Seder in person, but this is the first time that we've done this on Zoom. I can imagine it's the first time a lot of people have done a lot of things on Zoom, but this is where we're at. No one could have called it, but this is where we're at. I'll tell you one thing. We look for silver linings. That's what we do in life, right? Hey, Drew, good to see you. We look for silver linings. And the reality is that amidst all of the heartbreak and all of the pain and all the suffering, we have to find those bright moments as well. And we have now the opportunity with technology to be able to really embrace this way of reaching across borders, reaching across the country and across the world, and connecting with people. So I know I don't know everybody on this session, but I know enough to know that we are literally welcoming friends from across the country to this session, and that gives me a lot of nachas, and I'm very happy that we're able to do so, break down boundaries, and really connect as one, even with the challenging circumstances that we're all in. Okay, so they tell a story about Chaimel. Chaim was, his friends called him Chaimel. His name was Chaim. Chaim was a fellow who came in who was emigrating from the old country. This is going back a number of years, and when he was leaving his home country, so they weren't letting Jews take out the wealth, take out their money. So what he did was he basically sold all of his assets, and he converted it all to gold. All of his wealth, all of his whole estate, his whole fortune, he converted to gold. He melted down the gold and made, because he had a lot of gold, he made 5 sets of false teeth out of gold, full sets out of gold, and had them, and that's how he smuggled out his wealth, his money. And so he gets to the border, leaving his country, and of course, since this country had restrictions, of course they inspected his belongings. You know what they used to call suitcases back in the day? Valises. Remember that? Valises. Yeah. Who remembers a valise? There you go. Look at that. All right. You guys are awesome. So they look through his bags and they find the 5 sets of teeth. Now that's suspicious. Listen, that's 5 sets of gold teeth. Very suspicious. So they ask him, Chaim, what are these 5 sets of gold teeth for? So he says, look, here's the deal. I have 1 set. I'm a religious Jew. He says, I have 1 set for dairy. I keep kosher. I don't mix meat and milk. So I have 1 set for dairy. 1 set I have for meat. They said, fine, that's 2. You have another 3. It's like, not so fast. Passover. Passover, we have a different set of everything. So I have another Passover set for the dairy. That's 3. And another Passover set for meat, 2. Right? 3, 4. So what's the 5th for? So he looks around, and then he leans into the border official, and he whispers, sometimes Chaim likes a ham sandwich too. So that's his 5th set. So listen, here's the deal. If we were in person, I'm sure it would erupt in laughter, but it's okay. Thumbs up if you got the joke. Yes? Made sense? Okay, good. So tonight, the objective is to explore Passover, to explore Pesach, not the theory and not the Kabbalah of that. We have plenty of other opportunities. In fact, I just posted on Facebook and I sent out an email with 16 different classes that I've taught over the last few years about Passover. So if you want to get Passover prepped, there's no shortage of material from me or from others. Plenty of material to get prepped. Tonight is all about practical how to do your own Seder. For the first time, many of us are doing our own Seders. Many of us go to friends and family. Many of us go maybe to communal Seders. This year, with the reality that we're in, for the first time, many of us are going to be home. and we'll be doing our own Seder. So the question is, so what do we do? How do we do our own Seder? What is a way of doing it where it's not too elaborate to make it, not doable, but kosher enough to make it a Seder worthy of the name Seder? So that's the goal. We're going to try to get a nice middle balance between presenting something that is doable, but also meaningful and also kosher and on all levels of the meaning of that word. And I'll tell you this, many of us have maybe pondered, maybe not us, but I've heard from people saying, it's such a crazy time right now. The world is such, everything is so in flux and things change by the day and different, the messaging that comes out, who knows what's going on. Maybe we should just cancel Passover this year and call it a year. We'll pick it up next year. So my response to that, and people that have shared that with me, has been, look, we can do Pesach this year, we can do the Seder this year in the most authentic way. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you look back at the Torah in the book of Exodus, the Torah tells us about the very first Passover, the very first Seder, which was actually in Egypt right before they left. Right before the 10th plague hit, the Jews were commanded to sit down and have a Seder. It wasn't called a Seder, it was called just a meal, but they were told to have essentially what we know today as the Seder. And this meal, the Torah says, was meant to be had by people with their families at home. In fact, as the 10th plague was raging, they were told, and it's eerily similar to what's going on now, they were told, shelter in place. Do not leave your homes. There's a plague out there. Stay at home. Do not go out, lest you become also hit with the plague. Again, eerily, whatever, I'll let you draw your own conclusions and parallels, but to me, it's kind of like a little bit spooky. But the point is, regarding the Seder itself, regarding that meal itself, the Jews were told to have it at home with their loved ones under the same roof. In fact, they were not meant to go to anyone else's house. They were not meant to go, hold on one second. I'm going to mute everybody just so that we have, just so that there's no background noise. If at any point you want to ask a question, or you want to ask a question, share a comment or insight or whatever, just hit unmute yourself, and feel free to speak. But I'm just doing this so that the background noise is kept to a minimum. So in Egypt, that last meal before the Exodus, they were meant to have with their families at home, not even to go to the neighbor, not even to go to anyone else's homes, just having that meal at home. And I think this year, more than any other year, I don't know, in my lifetime, more people will be having Seders at home. I think it's kind of interesting how that's playing out. So with that being said, I think it's important to understand why the Seder at home. Why the Seder at home? Again, not every year do we have Seders at home. Some years we go to friends' houses. We have people over, and maybe we go to the synagogue, the shul. Maybe people go to hotels and cruises, whatever, in other years. But what's the value of having a Seder at home? So I taught a class a few years ago on this topic, and I just want to share this quick insight before we get into the how-to piece of it. And that is that Judaism places an incredible emphasis on the home. It's a mistake to think that Judaism is meant to happen in the synagogue. Yeah, there are things that also happen in the synagogue, but Judaism is primarily a home experience. It's not like, I don't know, Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, where the game is the game, and then there's like the at-home edition if you want to kind of have your own thing. Judaism, I know there was a weird parallel, but Judaism is mainly an at-home experience that also has things that we do communally. And the emphasis of this was in the very first mitzvah, essentially, that the Jews got, which was the Karban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb, and that meal. They were told to have it at home, which tells us for all time that Judaism, the center of the community is really in the home. The home is the center of Judaism. So we should not feel this year that it's somehow a second-rate experience, or somehow it's a, not so Pesach, or not so Passover, or whatever, however you like to pronounce it. We shouldn't feel like it's some sort of second-rate experience. You and I should know that this is the way it's supposed to be. At home, having a Seder. Now, of course, would we like to have it with family and friends? 100%. I'm not saying that it's the ideal. I'm not saying that it's the most enjoyable necessarily, given all the options and if we were able to choose. But I'll tell you, from a kosher perspective, is it kosher to have it at home? Absolutely. Is it ideal? It actually is ideal. So yeah, it would be nice if more people joined us at home in our homes, but listen, doing it at home is kosher. So again, this is a long response to what I've heard some people say, well, maybe, should we consider just kind of going low key? I would say, look, make it doable, but don't discount it as like not a real Passover. This is the real deal. We'll be at home like the original experience. I want to mention something else, and that is that there's a basic law of Kabbalistic gravity, and this is something that I've shared in many, many classes, many Kabbalah classes. And what is the law of Kabbalistic gravity? It essentially says that everything that exists down here begins with a spiritual catalyst. Nothing happens on the physical plane of reality unless there's a trigger in the spiritual realms, which means, in short, if there was an exodus, a physical exodus, that means that on a spiritual level, there was the spiritual energy of freedom and liberation unleashed at that first Passover. Are you with me? Yes? If the Jews physically walked out of Egypt as free people, that means that in the cosmic realms, there's an energy of freedom and liberation that is permeating the universe at that time. Now, Judaism teaches that time is, I was going to say cyclical. It's not really cyclical. It's not really linear. It's kind of like a spiral. What's a spiral? Think of like a spring, right? When I say spiral, I mean like a coil, right? So it's kind of going in a circular motion, but it's also moving forward, right? As I go into the screen. So what's the deal with the spiral? With time, what it means is that time marches forward, and we're headed toward a destination. However, as we go through our year, the cycle of the year, we cross points that have been previously crossed. And every time we reach that point on the spiral that aligns with a previous point from a previous year, the energy that was unleashed in that moment, when we come back to it a year later, that energy is once again available. Which means, in very short terms, every Passover in the universe, there is accessible the spiritual energy of freedom and liberation. And what that means for you and I is, it's the opportunity to break out of whatever holds us back, mainly internally. Each of us has things that we struggle with. Each of us has fears, anxieties, prejudices, right? Misconceptions or conceptions, ideas that essentially, and other factors internally that hold us back, that keep us in a defined box and keep us stuck in a status quo and not growing the way we could grow. And Passover gives us and affords us the opportunity, by opening up this incredible energy of freedom and liberation, to allow us to truly and authentically get out of our own way and achieve the next great thing that we can achieve. However, that spiritual energy is channeled primarily through the protocol and observances that we do on that occasion or holiday. So when it comes to Jewish holidays, bring it back to Passover. Pesach, Passover, is the opportunity to tap into that energy. But how do we tap into the energy? It's kind of like radio and TV, waves, I guess. Radio. Well, let's stick with radio. Radio waves, right? So they're all, like right now, right around you and I. Well, how many stations are out there? Radio stations. Tons of stations. Dozens of stations, right? How many are you hearing? Hopefully none, because that would be awkward. But if you have the right tuner, right? If you have the right receiver that has the correct tuning capability, you can tune into the right frequency. Think of the old school. Remember growing up, we had the old Oldsmobile station wagon with the manual. Yeah, that little guy right in the car. That little dial. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You tuned it. And if you went a little too far, like you missed it, it got fuzzy, you went back, you had to hit the sweet spot to get that station tuned in. On Pesach, and really any Jewish holiday, this is applicable, but Pesach is coming up. On Passover, it's all about tuning into the right frequency, but you need to tune into it because it's out there, but you have to receive it. You have to pull it in. You have to access it. How do we access it? Through the observances of the holiday. So, what I've been saying up until now is one central point. Don't let Passover pass you over. Don't let the opportunity slip through your fingers. Make sure you and we should capitalize on it by doing the Seder, because the Seder is the tuning frequency, is the tuning mechanism by which we draw down the frequency and actually access the what's available, the energy that's available for us on this most profound holiday. Of all of the holidays in the Jewish calendar, I can't think of any that are more necessary for you and I on a continuous basis than Passover. Because Passover is all about liberation, getting free, getting unstuck. Who doesn't want to get unstuck? I don't mean physically. I mean, yes, also physically, but spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, right? On every different level, we all want to get unstuck. This is our opportunity. Let's not miss this. Let's do this in the best way and the right way. So enter the Seder. The Seder is a carefully crafted experience that is designed to get us in touch with the spiritual energy of the day, and also to get in touch with ourselves so that we can grow through the holiday. So with that being said, we want to look at tonight, what is a Seder? How do we do a Seder? And what are the essential components? I'm going to break it down step by step for those of you that registered in advance for this session. Free registration, but if you registered, then I had your email and your contact information, and I knew that you were attending, and so I emailed you in advance a link to a Google Drive folder that has 3 files, 3 PDFs. One that has a Seder prep checklist. So between now and Wednesday night, I should mention, the Seder is Wednesday night. We'll talk about that soon, about what time. Between now and Wednesday night, you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You have 3 days to get your stuff ready for the Seder. A lot of it you already have at home. Some of it, I can help you figure out how to get. But there's ways to get everything at this point. We still have time. So the first document is a checklist. I'm going to share my screen right now, and I'm going to show you what the checklist looks like. Okay, here's the Seder checklist. It should be coming up. 3, 2, 1. Boom, Seder checklist. That is one file. The other file that I have is a Seder step-by-step. Did the new file show up, the step-by-step Passover Seder? Thumbs up if you see step-by-step Passover Seder. Yes? On your screens? Is it still checklist or step-by-step? Somebody unmute yourselves and tell me what you see.
Seder checklist.
You still see the Seder checklist?
Yeah. Checklist.
Okay, all right, hold on 1 second. 1 second, we're going to get this. We're going to figure out how to get the other one.
I got the document of both.
Rabbi Ari, I registered but did not receive those materials. When did you send those?
Well, no, that's because we have you on the blacklist. Just kidding. Just messing around. I sent those a few hours ago. I might have missed it. I did everything manually, so it's very possible that I missed it.
Okay.
But here's what I wanted to say. And I realized that the reason why I wasn't hearing anybody is because I had my volume turned all the way down. Awkward. But now I have it up, so now if you unmute yourself, I can actually hear you. So my apologies if I missed anybody saying anything. You should see now the step-by-step Passover Seder. If you didn't get the email with the link to the Google Drive folder, don't worry at all, because all you need to do is email me or text me or call me or whatever. Just message me, and I'll give you my contact information soon. Well, I'll give it to you now. It's rabbi.ari@chabadintown.org. Just email me, and I'll pop you the link. No, not a problem. Full access to all 3 documents. So again, we have the checklist. We have the step-by-step. We're going to be going through this tonight in just a moment. And the third document, let me get to the third document. The third document is let's see. Oh, I love this one. The Haggadah selections. So Even if you have a Passover Haggadah at home, it has a lot of pages. What we've done here is we've condensed the essentials. So if you do nothing but these, you will have done a kosher Seder. Don't tell anybody I'm telling you this. Shh. It's our little secret. But this is the essential. These are the essentials, right? It's 10 pages, but even within these 10 pages, I'll tell you what's the essentials of the essentials. But this is a very pared down version. The point is to make it doable, to make it accessible. Again, I will share these documents with those that I haven't shared it with. All you need to do is give me your email address, and I'll pop it over to you, because otherwise I don't know how else to share it to you, just through email. Okay, now, let's get back to, that's kind of like, these are the documents we'll be looking at. But before we get into the documents, I need to tell you one other point. And that is that, as it is with many things in life, 10 plagues, 4 children, not part of the essential Seder. There's a question about what's part and what's not part of the essential Seder. I'm going to get to that in a moment as we go through those steps. We'll get there soon. But first, it's important to note that oh my gosh, David from the Big Apple, I'm loving your background. That is fantastic. For those that are watching this in what I call the Brady Bunch format, yes, that's the matzah. I love that. It's got the matzah bakery oven in the background. It's fantastic. Okay, I digress. Getting back to what I was saying. When it comes to the Seder, like in anything in life, or many things in life, I know sports isn't really happening, but in sports, if you take, let's say in football, right? If you get the ball and you run, sounds so simplistic, right? You run 99.5 yards and you get tackled at the half-yard line and the time runs out in the game, guess what? You didn't get a touchdown. You didn't score. Or in an email, if you write the email address but don't put the dot in front of the .com or .org or .net or .whatever, right? In the URL, in the email address, the URL, whatever you're going to, if it's an email or a website, if you leave out one little dot, the message is not delivered. So if you park, especially in New York, if you park 2 inches over into the yellow line, guess what? You're going to get a ticket. In Atlanta, they're not always so makbid, so careful about that. But in certain places, you better believe it. So in life, the details matter. The same thing is true with the Seder, especially understood from the spiritual perspective. Remember, we're trying to channel the energies into our consciousness. To channel the energies, there is a protocol. So that's why we have something called the Seder. Seder literally means, unmute yourself if you can tell me what Seder means. Tell me what Seder means. Order. Seder means order, which means that there is a structure, there is a protocol. Now again, we're going to have a little bit of a condensed Seder, and that's cool because we're keeping all the essentials. But know this, the Seder is called Seder because there is a structure to this whole thing. Look, you would never go to Hamilton. Remember the play when people used to see plays? Yeah? Right. You go to Hamilton, you want to see the play. You don't want like somebody to get up on stage. Guys, listen, there was a president, and here's basically what happened. Enjoy your evening. Have a great time. No, you want to go through all the scenes and all the acts and the whole spiel. It's like a whole situation. So the Seder's also, there's a spiel, there's a protocol. So don't look at it as like mechanical, I'm boxed in, I got to do this, that, the other. Look at it as a way to really tap into the energy in an authentic way. Okay. At the same time, even as we follow the structure, i.e. the Seder, the order of the Seder, we're meant to do it in a way that's meaningful, in a way that connects. So let's talk about what are the essential ingredients of a Seder. And I have the essential ingredients, wouldn't you know it, right here. Ingredient number 1 of our essential ingredients is, David, I'm so copying you, the matzah. You guys see that? Peekaboo. Here's your matzah. Here's your basic, standard edition Jerusalem shmur matzah, right? Doubles as a frisbee, does not double as a frisbee, was just totally joking about that. Very breakable frisbee. This is your essential ingredient for the Passover Seder. So this is the matzah. Necessary ingredient number 2. These are the things that you need. So you need matzah. You need wine. I have in my hand a very inexpensive bottle of wine. It's called Rashi. You see that? Rashi wine. By the way, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying this is a bottle that I have in my house that happened to be open for one reason or another. So Rashi, or any wine. Second ingredient, kosher wine. Third element is the Seder plate items. Through the magic of a laptop whose cover folds down. I know what you're thinking. Whose laptop has a cover that folds down? Mine does. I'm kidding, yours also does. Right? So through the magic of the foldable cover, I will show you now what has been in front of me the whole time, unbeknownst to you. Whoa, look at that. Look at that. The whole time I had this up my sleeve. It wasn't on my sleeve. That would be very messy, but it was on my table. However, I do have Elijah's cup under my sleeve. I'm kidding. I don't have that under my sleeve. I have that right here. But we're going to talk about the Seder plate items in just a moment. And you thought this was going to be a dry workshop. Are you kidding me? What, you think the stand-up gets left behind just because we're doing a workshop?
I told you have to have a show.
I know that, Stephanie, you're going to produce it. Listen, I'm telling you, Fifi's going to be my sidekick. It's going to happen. Now, getting back to the Seder plate items. I want to zoom in again on this. I'm going to be going through these items one at a time and explaining to you what all of these are and exactly how this works. But these are the essential ingredients: matzah, wine, 6 Seder plate items, and that's it. Let's go through them each in turn. So what's the deal with the matzah? I'm glad you asked. The matzah is reminiscent of the bread of affliction, aka also known as poor man's bread. Why is it called bread of affliction and poor man's bread? Because it harkens back to the slavery. Slaves would eat a very simple meal. You know, when we talk about today like bread and water, well, even more simple than bread is matzah and water. Matzah is the most simple form of food. It's flour, it's water, that's it. No yeast, no eggs, no sugar, nothing, no salt, garnished. That's why it tastes like it tastes. It's also called poor man's bread because have you ever priced this stuff out? The handmade stuff? Are you kidding me? Buy a few boxes of this and tell me how much you have left in the bank. Kidding. All right, kidding, not kidding, kind of, sort of. But the ideal is the handmade varietal. The ideal is the handmade variety of the matzah. Why? Because it's authentic. It's the realio dealio. This is the matzah that's called shmura matzah. Does it say shmura matzah here? I feel like it should. Yes, it does. Not on that side, on the other side. Take a look at that right there. Shmura matzah. Right there. What is shmura matzah? Shmura matzah means that the wheat that was used in the making of the matzah, the wheat has been guarded, has been washed from the time of the harvest to make sure that no water has touched it. I feel like that line can get lost in everything that I'm saying tonight. I want to express what I'm saying one more time. Wheat grows in a field, and fields require rain, obviously. But from the time that this wheat that went into this flour was harvested, somebody, a rabbi, watched to make sure that not one drop of water touched not just the flour, but the wheat, even before it was ground into flour. In other words, the wheat stalks were kept completely dry and humidity free from the moment they were cut from the earth to the point that they were ground into flour. The first time any moisture touched that wheat/flour was the moment that it was mixed with water to produce the matzah. This is watched from the time of harvesting. That's why it's such special flour. And then it was made flour and water, mixed by hand, rolled out by hand, and baked within 18 minutes. That's what shmura matzah is. So it's watched from the time of the harvesting to make sure no moisture. It is hand-baked, i.e. baked by human beings, not by machines. And it is also round. It's not the square matzah. So it's round, it's homemade, whatever, it's handmade, and it's the most kosher form of matzah. Now, it may be difficult to get handmade matzah at this point, so I'll tell you this. If you need it and you're around Atlanta, even if not, let me know and I can try to arrange it. I'm here to help anybody get handmade matzah, shmur matzah for your seders. So if you don't have yet, if you need, contact me after this session. Email me, whatever it is, message me, and I will work with you to help you get shmur matzah for your seder. So that's number one. Number two, it is also available, last time I checked, at Costco, through Instacart even. They can deliver it to you, whatever, so there are ways to get it otherwise. But again, if you need any help in getting it, or if you need some, I have some, I can help get it to you. Just let me know and I can hook you up with that, or help you get hooked up with that. So that's with the matzah. The wine should be easily gotten. Why do we do so? Matzah harkens back to the food of affliction that they ate in the land of Egypt. What's the deal with the wine? So it says that when we make a blessing and we welcome in the Sabbath, or we welcome in a holiday, it's always good to welcome it in by sanctifying the day with a glass of wine. On Passover, we don't just have one glass of wine, we actually have 4 cups of wine. What's the significance of 4? So in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, as God is talking to Moses about the Exodus, so there are 4 expressions of redemption, and this corresponds to the 4 cups correspond to the 4 expressions of redemption that God uses in referring to the Exodus. Also, for Sandrine is messaging me. Kosher Kroger had shmura matzah today. Excellent. So kosher Kroger here in Atlanta, i.e. in Toco Hills, has some shmura matzah, and so that is also a possibility. But again, if you have any, you can contact me with it. So getting back to the wine, so 4 cups of wine. By the way, for those that are into numerology, the numerical value of kos yayin, which means a cup of wine, kos yayin, that numerology is 156. 4 times 156, 4 kos yayins, 4 glasses of wine equals 624, which is the same numerology as the word cherut, which means freedom. So, talk about a mathematical formula, and kind of like the matrix, we have this incredible numerology in the 4 cups of wine. 4 times 156 equals freedom. So that's all regarding the wine. And then, of course, we have the symbolism of the wine and the matzah. Matzah represents simple, tasteless, basic, and the wine represents flavor and taste and sophistication. And the message, the dueling message of matzah and wine, right? So what is the combo message of our matzah and our wine, right? If we put the two together, so when it comes to spirituality and when it comes to doing a mitzvah, doing good deeds, number one, we have to have dedication, even if we're not excited, even if it's not so tasty. It's good to do it because we're dedicated to what needs to be done. So selfless dedication to doing what's right is the matzah. At the same time, we should have a taste for what's right. We should develop a sophisticated appreciation for what we're doing, and that is the wine. So we should do it, like Nike says, just do it with the chauffeur insignia. So number one, we should just do it, but at the same time, we should also do it with a little bit of flavor. So that's the matzah and the wine. Then we have the Seder plate items. So I want to go through the Seder plate items right now, step by step. And what I'm going to do, once again, is focus on the Seder plate items. Okay, so here we go. Seder plate items. Let's talk about, one second, let's get this focused in on all of our streams. We're also streaming live to Facebook. Okay, so I'm going to show you the items in turn. So the first item that we have on our Seder plates, and guys, thumbs up if you can see this clearly. Yes? Is it coming through clearly? Yes? Fantastic. Okay, thank you. This is really, I know you can see it clearly because I have the screen. This is just to allow your thumbs to get exercise. I'm kidding, and I'm checking it. Okay, so number one is the zroa. Zroa is either, let's translate it typically as the shank bone. Some people use like an actual, a piece of a lamb. Some people use chicken. a chicken drumstick or a wing or a leg or a chicken neck. Chabad custom is to use chicken and not the lamb. Why is that the custom? Probably because lamb is, well, we'll speak about the symbolism. The symbolism is instead of the Paschal lamb, which we don't bring, so we have a symbol of that sacrifice and that offering on our Seder plates. But because we're not trying to maybe emulate it too much, so maybe that might be why the Chabad custom is to have something chicken. This is a chicken drumstick. This is from a piece of a chicken wing. Chabad custom is typically to use a chicken neck, but my chicken necks are being held for Passover, i.e. I'm reserving them. I'm not using them right now, pre-Passover, so I'm using a close replica. So this is the zroa to symbolize the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, and it goes on our Seder plates at the top. Hold on, I want to show this to you in a way that is doable here. You know what, I'm going to remove the other items so that you can see it clearly. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's clear the area. Okay, so I guess I should mention that you want to have some sort of plate that is your Seder plate, right? You want to have a plate, a surface to put everything on. So I'm using right now a simple plate. I have a fancier Seder plates for the actual Seder, but again, this is more of a demo of it all. So here we go. Here's the plate, and I'm doing this. I think it's going to work for your angle. Is this your top right when I'm showing it to you, or is this top left? What is it? Top right? Top right? Okay, good. So this is top right. That's where it goes. Top left is your egg. This is called the beitzah. This is the egg. Now, why do we have the egg? Very simple. To remind us of the bitter exile. Exile. Kidding. That was a joke. Joking about that. The reason why we have the egg is to remind us of another offering that we used to bring in the temple on Passover, which is known as the Karban Chagiga, which is the holiday offering that we do not bring today because we don't have a temple. And to remind us of the mourning of the loss of the temple, we have an egg which symbolizes mourning and the cycle of life, destruction, and rebirth. So that is the symbolism of the top two, literally the top of the Seder plates. Zroa, this is the Paschal lamb. Beitzah, this is the holiday offering. Those are the two. Next item is our classic marar, the bitter herbs. And this goes right in the center of our Seder plates. By the way, I should mention that people have different orientations for their Seder plates. I'm doing the Chabad version. Some people do it all around in a circle. However your tradition is, you can do it, but this is just the way that I do it, and I'm showing it to you. So the mar is meant to be bitter herbs to remind us of the bitterness of the... this is not a joke. I mentioned the joke about the bitter exile for the eggs, but this is to remind us of the bitterness of slavery, of exile. And there's a dispute amongst, well, not a dispute, there's a question as to what marar, what vegetable it's referring to. So there are 5 different options. 2 of them, which are probably the most well-known, are the romaine lettuce and the horseradish. So some people do like chunks of horseradish or shredded horseradish, but you can use romaine lettuce, and Chabad custom is to use romaine lettuce and shredded horseradish for your marar. Now, it's important to note, horseradish is obviously very bitter and strong. It has a strong taste to it. But what's the deal with romaine lettuce? You might wonder, how is that bitter? So I'll tell you this. Last time you had a Caesar salad, it probably didn't taste so bitter. But if you let the romaine lettuce, if you let it go without harvesting, without picking it, if you let it keep on growing, it gets very bitter on the stalk. That's the nature of romaine lettuce. And it reminds us of how sometimes things are good temporarily and then they get not good. So like the Jews, when they first went down to Egypt, things were cool. Joseph, viceroy, life was great in Egypt, and then it devolved into bitter slavery. So that's kind of like what the romaine lettuce reminds us of, how it starts off nice and tasty, but then it gets bitter and bitterer as it keeps on growing, or as time goes on. So hence the marar. Now we actually have 2 instances of the marar. One that we eat separately, as we'll see soon as we go through the actual particulars of the Seder, and the other that we eat for the sandwich, which is right beneath it, right there. So we have 2 instances of marar, because one is eaten distinctly on its own, and one is eaten with the sandwich, which again we'll talk about soon. Let me take this out so we can see the other items. Okay, the next item that we put down on our Seder plates is a fan favorite, and that is the charoset. The charoset is the mixture of nuts and fruit and wine. Everyone has their own recipe. You can Google charoset recipes and you can get a million different recipes. There's no wrong way to do it, but the goal is basically some fruits, some nuts, some wine, and we make a paste out of it, and it reminds us of the mortar and the cement that the Jews made when they were, dates. Yes, dates if you're Sephardic. Absolutely, dates, yes. So people use different things. In the charoset, it reminds us of the mortar that the Jews built the storehouses for Pharaoh with in Egypt. Again, it reminds us of the slavery. The next item is the karpas. Karpas is the vegetable, and different customs, many different customs. Celery, parsley. Chabad either uses usually an onion or a potato. I have here both. I don't know if you can see that. I have a little bit of onion action and a few chunks of potatoes. Usually the adults go for the onions and the kids go for the potatoes, and you'll dip that, of course, when you get to it in the Seder, in your classic saltwater mixture. This is a real saltwater mixture. It looks like my salt has settled, but what are you going to do? You would give that a quick swirl, a quick swoosh before you dip it. And then finally, like I mentioned before, you have another instance of the maror, essentially the same thing, your romaine lettuce and your horseradish, or if you can't get horseradish, just go with romaine. And that is for the sandwich. So these are your 6 items. That's it. You have your shank bone / chicken piece, whatever it is. You have your meat thing. You have your egg. You have your romaine lettuce and horseradish combo. You have your charoset mixture. That's the pasty thing. And you have your vegetable like your potato or your onion. Those are the 6 items. Each one is rich with symbolism. I've taught classes in previous years about the Kabbalah of the Seder plate, how each one of these 6 items corresponds to the 6 energies, spiritual energies in the universe, and the spiritual midot, the spiritual energies within the human, the emotive energies within a human being. But tonight we're not going. It's not a Kabbalistic deep dive. It's a practical how-to. So now you know what the essential ingredients of the Seder are. Again, to recap, you have your matzah, you have your wine, and these 6 items right here. That is what you need to pull off a kosher Seder. Now, questions coming in is, wait, hold on, the question just disappeared. Hold on. There's a chat box for those that don't know, and that's where I'm reading the questions from. Spicy Peach, Mark says, Spicy Peach is making ready-made charoset. Yeah, you can buy from a store. By the way, there are stores that are having very safe, hands-free, hand-off deliveries. Again, if you need any resources for any items for your Seder, please contact me and I can help you get them and make sure that you have what you need for your Seder. Sandrine is asking, do you do one Seder plate for the entire table or one for each person? And the short answer is whatever you'd like. You definitely need one per table. Some families like to have one per person. My kids love to have their own, so they each make their own. It's fun, it's engaging. Do whatever works. You need definitely one per table. If you want to do more, it's the more the merrier. That's what I always say. Oh, by the way, if you only have one Seder plate, make sure you have extra romaine lettuce and all the other items on hand so that you have enough to give out to everybody. Because if you only have this little dab right there, that ain't gonna work for a table of 5, 6 people or whatever, 4 people or 3 people even. You need a little bit more quantity that you can keep on the side and pull it out when you get up there. Okay, let's see what else is coming in. Oh, is the egg roasted or hard-boiled? Excellent question. I can't help myself. The egg is hard-boiled. And it reminds us of the fact that when life gets difficult, right? There are different ways to respond. Some things melt and become softer, and some things disappear and become, dissolved. But the egg gets strong. The egg gets, right, call it a hard-boiled egg. And it reminds us that when we endure pain, it should strengthen us to become stronger than we were before. We don't ask for pain. But if, God forbid, we're met with adversity, like the egg, we should become stronger through that process. That's one of the symbols of the hard-boiled egg. Also, I should mention, as we'll see soon, at the beginning of the meal, the first thing we eat is usually the egg from the Seder plate. Not everything from the Seder plate is eaten. There's one item from the Seder plate that we do not eat, and that is this guy right here, the shank bone or chicken thing. It's a symbolism for the sacrifice, the Paschal lamb. We don't eat it. It's symbolic. We don't eat it. The egg we eat at the beginning of the meal. The maror we eat throughout the Seder, as we'll see soon, we dip it in the charoset paste, and we dip the vegetable in salt water. So everything else we eat on the Seder plate, except for that item. Now I'm asked the question here, how do we know if we should eat kitniot or not? Kitniot is beans and legumes, beans and rice and those sort of things that are not chametz, they're not leavened items, but some have the custom not to eat it. So the typical division is like this. Ashkenazic Jews, i.e. Eastern European or European Jews, typically do not eat beans, rice, legumes, whatever legumes are, but that's what it's called. They don't eat that. Whereas Sephardim, people of a Sephardic origin, i.e. from Spanish Jewry or from Northern Africa, Jewish communities, they will eat these items. What's the source of the distinction? We don't have time to get into tonight. How do you know if you can or cannot or should not? It goes by your family tradition. So consult with your, call a previous generation and find out what they did. If you don't have a tradition, then go with your local community and what the majority is doing there. That's usually the way it's done. Okay, moving on to the actual how-to. So now we know why Seder. Now we know what the Seder is comprised of. Let's get to the how-to. So the first thing you need to know is the when. When do you do a Seder? Really important. And I can't overstate this. Look, if we want to do a Seder right, you got to do it on Passover. The Jewish day begins after nightfall. So if you're doing a Seder Wednesday afternoon, with all due respect, you're just having a weird meal. That's all you're having. It's just a very bizarre menu that you're having on a Wednesday afternoon. If you want to have a Seder, in other words, if you're eating all this stuff, God bless you, but it's not on Passover until nightfall. Nightfall in Atlanta is 8:42 p.m. Wednesday night, which means that your first cup of wine and the rest of the Seder that follows, that unfolds from there, should be done after 8:42. If you're thinking, well, but 8:42 is late, that's in Atlanta. New York, it's a little bit earlier, and in other parts of the country, just check your local calendar or go to Chabad.org, type in your zip code, and look for nightfall, and you'll find that time. So it's after nightfall. Now, here's the dealio. If you want, you can do all sorts of fun things before that time. Like you can have Zoom, with the grandkids. You can have all sorts of spectacles and fun things. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Knock yourself out. You can even discuss certain parts of the Seder beforehand. No problem. But your formal protocol, remember, Seder, there's an order here, and we're all about channeling the energies. If you tune to the right frequency, you get the right station. If not, you're just going to get static. We don't want static, so you got to tune to the right frequency. The frequency, the broadcast begins at 8:42 in Atlanta. So do your Seder 8:42 on. Sleep if you have to in the afternoon. Take a nap. You don't have to be anywhere the next day anyway. Everyone's working from, like everyone's doing. We live in a different world. No one's looking, no one's watching. You're all good. So 8:42 is when you want to start your Seder. Now, yes.
Rabbi, what time do we light the candles?
Excellent question. Lighting candles is at 7:45-ish, according to my memory. Best thing would be to consult the calendar or Chabad.org or any online calendar, whatever. But my recollection is in Atlanta, candle lighting is about 7:45, which makes the Seder about a little bit less than an hour later, 8:41, 8:42-ish. That's when you want to start your formal Seder. You can do all those things, but your formal protocol is starting from 8:42. Now, I'm being asked a question on the chat. What about doing Zoom with people in different time zones? So time of sundown differs. Yeah, what you want to do is you want to start. Listen. My recommendation, which is, it's all about doing it organically on the holiday, just us where we are, etc. So if we're not using Zoom, so we want to make sure to get that all in before candle lighting time, or 18 minutes, the max 18 minutes after candle lighting time. But in general, if you're doing a Seder, you would go by the latest starting time or by the earliest candle lighting time, if that makes sense. Okay, now, getting back to the actual Seder. So that's the when. So we went through basically all the pieces that are leading up to the bottom line of what are the various steps. So let me see 1 second. Let's get folks in. Admit. Okay, now. I'm going to pull up my screen, and I'm going to show you the step-by-steps. Okay, I showed this to you before, and some of you may have this document. If you have the document, open up the one that says Step-by-Step Seder Guide. It's a PDF, and it's going to walk you through the various steps. So this is what the document will look like. If you have it, it's what it looks like. If you don't have it yet, it's what it will look like. I'm going to make it very big here. Step-by-Step Passover Seder. If you notice, there's an illustration here. We have the zroa shank bone, the egg, you have your mar in the middle, your charoset, your vegetable karpas thing, and your replica of the mar called the chazeret, but it's the same thing. Okay, now, that's for the sandwich. So, okay, I'm being asked a question about the end of Passover. I'm going to get to that in a second. So let's continue to go through this. So step by step. So the first thing you want to do is set up your Seder plate. You want to have your matzah, 3 matzahs, ideally 1, 2, 3. And then on top of it you have, or next to whatever, you have your Seder plate. Great. I'm going to give you 9 steps. 9 steps to pulling off a Seder. These should be doable and all, manageable. And again, you'll have this document. You can reference it, print it out. You have it with you. Easy to go. Easy to roll. Step 1 is reflection. It's called optional. I'm going to say, let's do this. So before you begin your Seder, step 1 is to reflect on what this day means, on what you want to get out of this day, on what the holiday, the energy has felt like in the past, or what you expect it to be for you, or what were the blessings that you want on this Passover for yourself, your family, and the world. So that's step 1 is reflection. It's always good to start off with reflection and setting expectations. Step 2 is candle lighting. As I mentioned a moment ago, so the custom is that women and girls light the holiday candles and recite the blessings. The blessings will be, all the texts that we're going to talk about tonight are on this separate document that I either have shared with you or I will share with you if you give me your email address. Basically, we have a 10-page document printed out. It's a very, very pared down Seder Haggadah. It has the holiday blessings for the candles. So you light the holiday candles. Typically, it's women and girls of the household light the candles. If there's a man or men and no women in the household, then one of the men should do it. But if there's women and girls, the women have that special mitzvah. It's the custom that women and girls specifically do that mitzvah. Now, the next item, so that's step 2, lighting the candles. So reflection, candle. Step 3 is the kiddush. The kiddush is the sanctification of the day. Again, we rock and roll with the kiddush. Oh, I should mention, I'm sorry I didn't mention this before. The kiddush is either wine or grape juice. It's totally kosher to use grape juice if you don't drink wine. So if you can't or you don't drink wine, go for the grape juice. Totally cool. Oh, very important. Don't use the fake grape juice. Don't use like cranberry, blah, blah, blah. Use actual grape juice. Like, don't go for the exotic stuff, because if it's not grape juice, then it might taste good, but have that, Tuesday. Or, in the meal of the Seder, but not for your 4 cups of wine or grape juice. They should be 100% either wine or 100% grape juice. So I don't have my grape juice bottle here. I have it downstairs in my house, whatever. I have Kedem grape juice. Again, I got it, Instacart, Costco, boom, they brought it to my house. Whatever, you can get it anywhere. Or, again, let me know and I can help try to facilitate that to your house. Bottom line is, this is where you're going to start. This beautiful Kiddush cup, Mark, I don't know if you recognize this. Where's Mark Galt? In my screen. Let's see, Mark. Let me get Mark. Yeah. You see this? Have you ever seen it before? This is, anyway, this, Mark knows what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. But this is just between me and Mark. This is a Kiddush cup. This is a cup that similar to one that could be used for the 4 cups of wine. You could use any cup, in truth, with a stem, without a stem. The main qualifications of your cup of wine or grape juice is that it should be at least 3.3 ounces. 3.3 ounces of cuppage. And then you fill it up. Overflowing blessings. Pour it to the top and go a little bit over, because we don't want the blessings to be just enough. Oh, we just made it in. You want your blessings, at least I want my blessings, overflowing, like they say back in the day, over the top. Like blessings over the top. Too much, right? You can't have too much of a good thing. All right, now, Moving on. That's step 3. You say the passage of the Kiddush. It's in the documents. It's in the booklet that either I sent you or I will send you. Next step, step 4. Again, there's only 9 steps. We're almost halfway through. Step 4 is the vegetable. The vegetable is this guy right here. The onion, the potato, the parsley, the celery, whatever your custom is. Take a vegetable and you dip it in the old salt water. Take your vegetable, you dip it in salt water, boom, shakalaka. There's a blessing over there. Again, it's on your sheets, the other sheets that I sent you or will send you, and then you eat the vegetable. I know what you're thinking. The wine, we know, we sanctify the day with wine or grape juice, kiddush, it's joy, whatever. We spoke about the symbolism, but why the vegetable? That's exactly the point. Why the vegetable? So that you should ask, why the vegetable? The vegetable is done literally so that you should ask, why the vegetable? It's so meta. It's so incredibly meta. Before meta was a word, this was meta. You want to engage everyone at the Seder. Children, adults, yourself if you're alone. You want to be doing something that's unusual. Yeah, you start your meal with a kiddush like normal for like a Shabbat or a holiday, and then you segue over to a vegetable. Just a little vegetable and a little salt water. What are we doing? I'm glad you asked. That segues into the story of the Passover. Why are we gathered here on a Wednesday night? What are we doing anyway? What's going on? And you tell the story of the Exodus. And that's step number 5 in your sheets right here. Step 5 is relive the story. Before we do that, though, after the vegetable, we break our middle matzah. Why? Because it's poor man's bread. And the poor man, right, the impoverished, don't even have a full piece of matzah. They don't even have a full piece of matzah. So we break the middle matzah. We have 3 matzot. Break the middle matzah to symbolize even a greater sense of impoverishedness, a greater sense of poverty, a greater sense of this poor man's bread. And then we're ready to feel the empathy and begin sharing the story of our nationhood, about the slavery and about the incredible salvation. If you don't feel the slavery, you're not going to feel the salvation. Are you with me? If you don't feel the pain, you can't feel the joy. So that's the goal, is to feel that pain, to feel that empathy to a certain extent. Now, at this point, as you see here in step 5, you pour the second cup of wine. We don't drink it. We just keep it poured and off to the side. Then the 4 questions are asked. I think somebody typed in the chat box before about the 4 questions. Yes, the 4 questions are right here, and they're on the handout as well in the original Hebrew and English. Read it however you want. It's on the sheet that, again, either I sent you or I will send you. There is a special section, a key section that talks about Avadim Hayinu, how we were slaves and then God took us out. That is a fantastic passage to mention, even as we pare down the Haggadah, the Seder, to make it more doable. You don't have to, but even if you pare it down, you want to get that paragraph in, because it talks about kind of like the whole cycle of we were slaves, then God took us out. In that passage, we also mentioned that that if God had not taken us out, we would still be slaves. And everyone wonders, why would we still be slaves? What do you mean? If we wouldn't have gone out, then 300 years ago we would still be slaves. I'm sure something would have changed. We would have been out. Anyway, first of all, we wouldn't be a people. If God didn't take us out, we would be lost to history, God forbid. We wouldn't be a nation. But second of all, the Exodus teaches us a lesson and taught us a lesson for all time. And that is that no one is truly broken. No one is truly down and out. There's always a chance for the comeback story. Any movie, the Comeback Kids, any movie, I know the Comeback Kid was an actual movie, but any comeback story, right, is all a derivative of the Exodus. It's all the same story. A nation down and out, no chance. If this was like old school 1980s WWF wrestling, they would have the leg with the guy diving on the mat. 1, 2, 3. This would be it. The Egyptian would be putting on the belt and prancing off with some sort of like applause. If you're with me so far, welcome back to the 80s or whatever, maybe even this decade. If not, just stick with me because I'm about to get to the real point. The point is, even when it looks like we're down and out, there's always a chance, there's always hope, and we have trust that there will be a rebound. So what's the bottom line is, that's why we read this passage called Avadim Hayinu. It's a very important passage. Okay, we have meditations here, whatever. Then there's a section right down here. I'm actually going to highlight it. proceed to the part that discusses the 3 mitzvot of the Passover. Pesach, the Paschal Lamb, which again we have the symbolism of. We have the symbolism, the shank bone, chicken bone situation. The matzah and the maror, the matzah and the bitter herbs. Those are the essentials, and there's a passage that says that these are the essentials. Say that passage. And then you say the blessing and drink the 2nd cup of wine. That's pretty much that step. Now let's move on. Step number 6, you wash. So again, you've done kiddush, you've dipped a vegetable, you've broken some matzah, you've told the story. However long or short you want to go, tell the essentials, it's on the sheets. Next step is the matzah. You wash your hands, the traditional hand washing, and then you eat your matzah. Do not eat the cardboard of the box, even if it tastes the same. That was a joke. Right? You want to eat your matzah at that point. That is your time to do the mitzvah of eating the matzah. Okay, next is the maror, the bitter herbs. Empathy. Empathy is such an important human trait. We eat the bitter herbs so that we can remember the bitterness and empathize with pain. And there's pain today. There's so much pain. And we need to feel the pain to know what that's like so that we can do something about it, both for ourselves and for others. Anyone who's in pain, we should be there for them. That is the maror, that is the bitter herbs. So we have the matzah, the bitter herbs. If you want, go nuts and make a sandwich. Go nuts with the charoset. Look at that. You dip your maror a little bit in the charoset that has the nuts in it, and then you taste it. Don't go too crazy with the charoset though, because you don't want to neutralize. You don't want to make your maror too sweet either. It's got to have a little bit of the bitterness. You want to taste that horseradish. You want it to clear the sinuses and give you a little bit of a kick. So that's always a good thing. So we have the maror, and then we do it with a sandwich. We take a piece of matzah or two, fold it over with our lettuce, a little bit of charoset in the middle, and we chomp it down. That's step 6 and step 7. Step 8, fan favorite, is of course the meal. And at this point, we eat finally. They tell a story about the fellow who was invited to the Seder for the first time, and his friend asks him afterwards, "Oh, how was your first Seder?" And he says, "I will never go back again." Are you kidding me? The first thing is, it started at 8:42 at night. Who starts a meal so late? And then the next thing you know, I have to guzzle a glass of wine that they poured overflowing. Meshuggah. And then what do? They start dipping a vegetable in salt water. What's the point? And then I think finally we're going to start the meal. No meal. We're cracking a matzah. Meshuggah. You ask 4 questions. Weiter meshuggah. Again crazy. What's going on here? And then you tell a story about an ancient thing. Finally we're going to eat now. We're washing the hands to eat. No, we pound matzah, flat bread. I can't tell if it's the box or the actual matzah. Then we have more bitter herbs. I turn red, my face turned purple. Then we had a sandwich of those 2 items, as if each one alone wasn't enough. At that point, I ran out of there. I'm out of there. I booked it. And the fellow says, "Are you kidding me? You left right before the meal, right before the main course." Oy gewalt. By the way, that's a metaphor in life. Don't check out before the good times get rolling. Anyway, not to discount the other parts, but don't leave before it gets really good. Anyway, at this point, step 8 is the meal. Have yourself a delicious meal, a wonderful life. It's a great meal. We start off with the egg, right? We dip it again in the salt water. We peel the egg. Make sure to peel it, unless you don't like to. But peel the egg, dip it in salt water, take a nice bite of your hard-boiled egg, then you enjoy the meal. Then you have another piece of matzah. For dessert, you have another piece of matzah. That's the afikoman, which you may or may not have hid when you broke the matzah. Half of it you leave, half of it you could hide. And then the finale. After the meal is concluded, you pour a 3rd cup, and then you say, and then you pour also Elijah's cup. This is Elijah's cup as created by my daughter, Riva. Some of you know her. This is the cup that she created in preschool. And it's very, very fancy schmancy, and it's very special. It's dear to my heart, and it's beautiful. So this is Elijah's cup. By the way, why Elijah's cup? Because Elijah is all about redemption. It says that Elijah will come and tell us the Messiah is here. So what better night to welcome Elijah to herald the redemption than Passover, which is anyway the theme of redemption. So let's just do it, Elijah. Let's get this party started. All right, listen, we all could use a little Mashiach right now. We could use a better world, right? No illness, no hunger, no pain, no suffering. I think we can all be on board for that. So we pour Elijah's cup. We also pour the 3rd cup of wine. We recite the blessing after the meal, as you see right here. Recite the grace after meals, again on your handout. And then we drink the 3rd cup of wine. Immediately we pour the 4th cup of wine, because that's how we roll. And then we say some more prayers, which again, the praise of God, which is again on your sheets. And then we drink the 4th cup of wine. and we proclaim next year in Jerusalem, which means next year we're out of quarantine because we're in Jerusalem and we are free people once again. So that is your Seder in a nutshell. Again, no puns intended, in a nutshell. So here's what I want to show. One more time, I want to show you this other sheet because this is your key sheet for those that don't have it yet. Select, let me make this bigger, much bigger. Select, a little bit less bigger. Select passages from the Passover Haggadah. Passage, follow along. Again, you have two sheets here so far. You have your step-by-step and your passage sheet. And one references the other. It says, now say passage 1. Boom. Now say passage 2. Boom. It's on your sheet. So right here, passage 1 is the blessing on the candles. Passage 2 is the blessing on the first cup of wine. Passage 3 is the blessing over the vegetable dipped in salt water. Passage 4 are the 4 questions. Passage 5 is the idea that if God didn't take us out of Egypt, we would still be stuck, or we wouldn't be around, or whatever it is. Hold on. Passage 6. Again, it's these are the 3 essential items. Pesach, matzah, mar, the Passover lamb, the matzah, and the mar. Right? We mentioned all 3 things. These are the essentials. Then we do. Then there's a few prayers which you can say if you'd like, and then the blessing over the second cup of wine, the blessing over the washing of the hands. Passage 10 is the blessing over the matzah. Then 11 is a blessing over the mar, and then we have the sandwich, and then we eat the meal, and then passage 12 is the first paragraph of the grace after meals, followed by passage 13, which is the third cup of wine blessing. 14 is the Hallel praise, followed by, that goes on for a page or 2, or 3, or 4, followed by the last piece, which is the blessing over the fourth cup of wine, and then next year in Jerusalem. By the way, just in case you're wondering, you can say these prayers in English, in Hebrew, in French, in Russian, in whatever language you prefer. The main thing is to say them and connect with them. Remember, it's all about having a meaningful experience. So, to summarize very quickly, give me 60 seconds for the summary. The Pesach Seder is very significant. It's usually done with a lot of pomp and circumstance and travel. This year it's going to be old school. OG Seder, like they did in Egypt, with whoever's under your roof at home. That's it. OG Seder, but you're not missing out on anything of the spirituality. In fact, maybe we can even focus more because it's less about the accoutrements and it's more about the essentials, perhaps. The main items of your Seder are the matzah, the wine, and your Seder plate items, your 6 items. Follow the step-by-step 9 steps. Get yourself ready on time, light your candles, go through the steps, read the passages either in your own Haggadah or on the sheet that I prepared for you, and eat the items as you eat them, and you've done a Seder. And hopefully, you and I experience, even if not yet, well, we should have also the physical freedom and redemption and healing, whatever we need, but we should also have that certainly on a spiritual level. I will tell you one more thing. The matzah is called in Zohar, in Kabbalah, it's called food of faith. Eating matzah strengthens our faith in God, and it's also called the bread of healing, the food of healing, physically bring healing to us. So, let's eat matzah, let's drink wine or grape juice, let's have the Seder plate items, and let's make it a meaningful Seder. At this point, we have concluded the DIY Seder Workshop. So, I guess we should say next year in Jerusalem upon completing this mini Seder. But what I want to do now is open up the floor. You can unmute yourself, you can ask questions. I'll continue to read the questions in the chat. Any questions or clarifications or resources that you need, now is the time, now is your opportunity to ask. I'm on here for as long as we need. Thank you. But formally, in case you want to jump off, if you got it and everything's clear and you want to jump off, you have to go. I want to thank you for joining me this evening. I treasure the time that we spent together. We went a little bit long, but Jewish time is Jewish time. What are you going to do? 60 minutes, 75 minutes, who's counting? So thank you for joining us, Thank you for being part of it, and have a wonderful Passover. Again, if you need anything, please reach out. I'm here to help. I have resources, and I can help you get those resources. Also, if you want any of the documentation that you didn't receive, just send me a message, and I will email you a link to my Google Drive, that one folder that has those 3 documents: a checklist before Passover, the step-by-step guide, and the readings that you can read in Hebrew and English. So thank you again, and let's continue to chat. All right, fire away. Anybody who has questions or comments?
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes.
My question is Julie.
Hey, Julie.
So while we're outside of Israel, we're supposed to have both nights of Seder, correct?
Oh, yes. And this actually connects with a question that was asked in the chat. By Jason. So, yeah, let me address this point. It's very important because I didn't mention it, but continue with your question.
No, I mean, that's my question. I mean, is it just wrong to just have it one night if you're outside? I think I already know the answer.
I want to say this. You know me, right? I'm not going to say anything is wrong. So I'm not going right or wrong. I'm not making that judgment. Here's what I want to say. If you can, ideally, do the 2 Seders. If you can only do one, do the first night. So ideally, in Israel, they only have one Seder Wednesday night. In the diaspora, and why we have 2 days and 2 Seders is a longer conversation. It has to do with the Jewish calendar and very specific conversations about the Jewish calendar. But in the diaspora, i.e. Jewish communities outside of Israel, the custom is to have 2 Seders. For sure, do the first. If you can, do the second as well. So that's the answer. Ideally 2, so you would do it Wednesday night and Thursday night. If you can only do one, do the best you can. Do one. The holiday, by the way, ends a week later. So there's the first 2 nights, and then there's an intermediary days of the holiday, and then it ends a week later. Midweek, the following week, is when the holiday actually ends. So how do we end the Seder night? We wish each other well, but the holiday actually continues on, and we're not meant to eat any leavened item, any chametz, any bread, whatever, throughout the duration of the holiday. Only matzah and or kosher for Passover items, which are, again, fairly attainable. All fruits and vegetables certainly are kosher for Passover. If you want to, that could be chametz, could be leavened. Either way, it's very doable to do for this week of Passover, having that kosher leavened items. Before Passover, take all your Cheerios and all your, all the stuff that's not kosher for Passover, put it in the pantry or put it in a cabinet, put tape over it, and sell it on Chabad.org. That you sell your chametz, and it's not yours for that week. You don't eat it, you don't look at it, you don't touch it, and then after Passover, it becomes yours again because the sale is reversed. If you want to know what that means, you can contact me after. It's too long of a conversation to explain right now. Just Google Chabad.org, sell your chametz, and you'll get all the information that you need, or you can contact me. I'm happy to explain it. But I wanted to mention that. I wanted to make sure to mention that before we close out tonight. So hopefully, Julie, that answered your question. Jason, I see that answered your question. What about frozen chametz? Yeah, try to offshore it. And by offshore it, I mean, either finish it beforehand or move it to someone else's freezer. Try to get it off the Look, I don't know.
Okay.
We're trying to go through everything right now. I have my kids on a carbs only diet. It's the anti anything and everything. We're going all carbs all the time, just marathoning through the stuff that we need to get rid of. I'm gonna just personally, I'm gonna take some of my stuff. Chabad has a very large freezers. I'm gonna go in, carefully. Chabad is closed, but I'm gonna go in with the right. It's clean and sanitized. I'm gonna go in and store some stuff and then pull it out. That's what I'm gonna do. If you don't have that if you don't have another freezer to use, and then we're gonna sell all that stuff. That stuff, the whole Chabad is gonna be sold because no one's going in there anyway. If you don't have that luxury, I don't know. Try to get rid of it. I mean, that's the best thing I can say.
Okay.
I mean, worst case is you put it in a section and then cover it, and then don't access under that cover. That's probably that might work. I would say that's the best I could say.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah, it's Stephanie.
Hold on one second. Let me call on. So Charna, go ahead.
With the second night candles is the best way to light the fire to have a yahrzeit candle from the first night?
Yes, very, very good point. I didn't mention that. To light the candles for second night, you don't want to create new fire on the holiday. So use a pre-existing flame. Pro tip, use a 24-hour candle or maybe even a 48-hour candle. You can find it again in any store. Literally any supermarket has the Jewish yahrzeit, the memorial candles. Light it Wednesday evening, when you light the candles, Wednesday evening, light that candle also, the 24-hour, 48-hour candle. And then the next night, you use fire from that to light your second day holiday candles. You light it after nightfall. The second day, you light it after nightfall. The first day, you light it before nightfall because you want to light it before the holiday. The second day, you want to light it once the new holiday has begun. You're not creating fire. You're transferring it from the old one to the new one. So for the holiday purposes, it's kosher. One second. Mark, shh. 1 second. Mark, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something I want to pass. Oh, I said Mark, right?
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to pass something along. This is a Haggadah I use. It has margin notes, and you can get this at Judaica Corners. It's an art scroll. I'm sure they have others. I don't have one for Chabad, but if you want to keep the flow, of the Seder, does that one have margin notes too? I don't know.
Yeah.
So in other words, just to keep the flow of the Seder, if you're not reading every word, you can just read the margin notes, and it gets you right through, and it keeps the context and the flow.
Yeah.
I wanted to say.
It's thank you. It's very, very helpful to have a simple. Look, it's good to have an elaborate one. I have a few props on my table right now. This is a kid's one with illustrations. That's wonderful also. But it's also good to have a very simple. This is the Chabad version of what you have. It's a simple. I before I moved to Atlanta, I actually worked on this because I was in publishing for the Chabad publisher in New York. We call this the dollar Haggadah. It was about creating a simple, easy to use. Now it ends up being like $2 or $3, but whatever. That's sales. That's not. We were content. We were editorial, and that's sales. We don't whatever. But we call this internally the dollar Haggadah. It was all about creating simple, easy to use, good flowing Haggadah. It's got your basic flow right here. So yeah. By the way, I will also mention it's so important to help support local businesses, including the Jewish businesses. Judaica Corner is open for business. That's our local Judaica store, and they are doing curbside delivery with gloves and masks and everything. Call them up, Judaica Corner, and you can get what you need from them. Call up Kosher Gourmet, the kosher butcher, and they'll also help bring it out to your car. All of the local places, we're all in the same boat. We're all being cautious and taking as many precautions as possible. If you need something, there's a way to make it happen. If you have a specific question, please, I know I've said this, I know you're probably sick of me saying this, but please reach out and I can help get what you need. All right, I'm hearing a lot of feedback. 1 second, if you're not... Okay, I just muted everybody because that was pretty epic with the feedback that I was getting. I'm going to unmute now. Stephanie, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead.
First of all, happy Pesach to everybody.
Thank you.
And hope your own families are all safe.
L'chaim.
Rabbi, thank you very much for doing this. And even though we were muted, we were cracking up. You're funny.
Thank you.
For people that, I just have 2 questions that weren't asked yet, but with people that are myself, like immunosuppressed, that cannot go out, or
right.
My caregiver cannot go out, where can we get the shmur matzah and the haroset? And then my second question was, because normally I make the haroset, but I can't this year. And the next question is when we do Yitzchak.
Okay, great question. If I had it delivered to you, if I brought it over with the right equipment, would you be able to receive it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Very much.
I'm happy to bring it over myself. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Of course.
You.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So let's follow up with me after this, and I think I have your new address, but I'll make sure that I have it, and I'll come maybe with some of the kids. We'll keep a safe space, and we'll have all the right safety equipment, but I'm going to hook you up with what you need for it. Like I said, I'm here to help, and I'm here to bring you what you need. So that's one thing. And the second thing is Yizkar is going to be on the last day of the holiday, which is, let me pull up the calendar. I don't have a calendar. Actually, I do. 1 second. Let me minimize my screen for a moment. And are you guys seeing shared screen, or are you seeing me? What are you guys seeing right now?
Share. The Brady Bunch.
Oh, the Brady Bunch view. Okay, good. All right. So I'm pulling up a calendar. Yizkar is going to be... I believe Yizkar is going to be Thursday, the 16th of April. I believe it's Thursday, April 16th. I don't have all my I don't have my real calendar with me. I'm going off of just like a secular calendar, so don't quote me on it. But I believe the last day of Pesach, according to my calculation, will be April 16th, and as a Thursday, and that's when Yizkar is last day of Passover. I will say this, synagogues are all shut down pretty much, so we have to do the best we can. We have to do the at-home version.
Thank you.
Pleasure. But please follow up with me. I'm gonna hook you up. Any other questions? Comments?
We begin the counting of the Omer.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. We begin the counting of the Omer the second night of Passover, which is a big mitzvah. We count the Omer. Why do we count the Omer? Because the Omer won't count itself. No, we count the Omer because that's when the Omer sacrifice was brought after the first day of Passover, and we count. That begins the 50-day count to the next holiday, Shavuot, the holiday of cheesecake, ice cream, and of course the tablets in the Torah. Hopefully by Shavuot we're able to eat ice cream together. If not, we'll do a virtual, Zoom Sunday or something, like Sunday Sundae-ish. You with me? Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. All right. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Drew. Oh, wait. Hold on. I muted you. Sorry. I meant to unmute you.
Where can we get the Haggadah you were showing, the dollar Haggadah? Where can we get those from?
This guy. I know a guy. No. Here's the thing. Right now, that's going to be a little harder because I don't have stock of these here. So I would say, you know what? Here's what I can try. Let me go back to
Chabad.org has a PDF of Ghana.
Okay, Chabad.org has one. Good.
I was looking for. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm looking on Amazon. Amazon has it? Oh, baby. Unbelievable. And who says this was just for toilet paper and hand sanitizer? $14.65 someone's charging. Geneva. Gazela. Who does that? Anyway, whatever. It is what it is. But anyway, listen. At this point, it might be hard.
Thank you.
Sorry?
The PDF sounds great. Thank you.
Even better. PDFs are instant. Remember, just let me know. Just email me if I didn't email you yet, and I will email you a PDF of the abridged version. If you want a larger version, check out Chabad.org. Or again, I can also, if you email me privately, so I know who to email, I can try to find a good link as well for that. But yeah, at this point to ship it, it's probably not going to happen on time. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, the yard side candles before the Pesach.
Yes.
Candle, right? Okay.
The yard side candles before, exactly. So Wednesday evening at 7:45, you first light your 24-hour or 48-hour candle. Then you light the other candles. And then, the reason why I say 48 hours is because it's just at the 24 hours when you need to light the next days. So, depending on how much paraffin or whatever it is they actually inject it into that little situational that we're buying from the supermarket or wherever we have it, depending on how long that's going to last, we might be right at that border, at that edge. So if you can get a 48 hour, it's good. I know, okay, so for example, Kosher Gourmet, at least last week, Kosher Gourmet, the local butcher, also sells other stuff. They had 24-hour candles and the 2-day, the 48-hour candles. Always safer to go with those. But whatever. You know, you can go with a 7-day candle, knock yourself out. Just make sure it's safe. Whatever you're lighting, make sure it's in a safe place. You know, we don't need to, do anything that's not safe. The goal is to let it burn out naturally and not to put it out. We don't want to light or extinguish on the holiday. Yeah, do it definitely in a safe fashion. Pleasure, Vlad. My pleasure. Any other questions, comments, insights, anecdotes? I feel like I want to tell some more jokes. So, for the brave that are still on, they tell a story about Morris. Morris was one of the... Morris the Jew. He was one of the royal advisors to one of the kings years ago. And Morris thought that if he gets, if he converts to whatever, the pleasure. Some people are saying goodbye in the chat, just saying goodbye there. Robin, Marty, we'll see you guys. Great to see you guys from Seattle. Really awesome to see you guys. Have a happy Passover. Okay, so back to my joke. So Morris realizes that if he wants to really rise in the higher ups of the monarch of the palace, so maybe it's better if he renounces Judaism and converts to Christianity. So he does so, and things are going well. At a certain point, years later, he decides, you know what, I don't need it anymore. That's it. I want to go back to Judaism. So he tells his wife. He says, you know what? I went to the king and I told the king, that's it. No more conversion. We're back to where we started. We're back as Jews. This was like a week before Passover. She says, what? You couldn't have waited a week? You're doing the cleaning now.
I got it.
That's it. That's all I got. It wasn't that funny. It wasn't that funny. Anyway, whatever. There's more jokes, but who has the time? So.
Yeah, but are you gonna do a rachatz because the coronavirus after every step?
You got it. Yeah, that meme going around. You do wash the hands after every step to make sure. Listen, the main thing is, I have to emphasize this. I didn't emphasize this enough before. Look, we live in very, very unique times. So we live in a time where literally life and death. I mean, there's danger that's out there. There's always danger, but there's we have to be very careful. And we know in Judaism the most important thing is life. Famous story told, I've mentioned in class over the last few weeks, how the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, who was a great mystic, a great tzaddik, a great rabbi, on Yom Kippur, he took off his talit, he took off his prayer shawl, left the services, in the middle of, didn't tell anyone what he was doing. People were kind of spying and seeing what... He chopped wood and brought it to a woman's house who had just given birth to cook her soup because she wasn't feeling well and her life was in danger. The bottom line is you violate everything and anything to save a life. We live in a moment in which life is always the first priority, but we have to be very careful. We can't do anything reckless. We can't do anything that is irresponsible. But that notwithstanding, there are ways to do the Seder in a way that's manageable, responsible, safe, and happy. Sorry, my voice cracked. Happy. So the goal is to do it in a way that's manageable and that's engaging, meaningful, and uplifting. So that's it. All right. I think that's it. Thank you all for joining me tonight. You can watch the rebroadcast at any time on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com. Whatever. Just look for Intown Jewish Academy on YouTube and you'll see this live stream. Thank you again. Have a wonderful Passover. A kosher and freilich and Pesach. If you need any of the resources, email me, call me, text me, WhatsApp me, Facebook message me. Let me know how I can help. Thank you. We'll see you guys soon. All right. Take care.